A fire was being prepared for one man. The people had heard his questions. They had seen what had happened to their idols. They had been forced, for a brief moment, to admit what they already knew. The statues could not speak. They could not protect themselves. They could not identify who had broken them. Yet instead of abandoning what had been exposed as powerless, the people decided to defend it with greater force. Their answer was no longer an argument. Their answer was fire. What happens when an entire society has the power to punish one person, but that one person possesses the truth? What happens when family, tradition, religious custom, and political authority all demand silence? And what remains when even fire is commanded by its creator? Welcome to the Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Today, we begin the remarkable journey of Prophet Ibrahim, the man who stood before idols, rulers, rejection, and fire without surrendering the worship of Allah alone. The Quran does not present Ibrahim's life as a single dated biography. It returns to him across many surahs. One passage shows him speaking gently to his father. Another places him beneath the night sky. Another brings us before the broken idols. Another takes us to the edge of the fire. Each scene reveals a different dimension of the same servant of Allah. For that reason, we will follow the clear movement of the Quranic account without pretending to know every date, location, or detail that revelation does not provide. We begin with what the Quran does tell us about Ibrahim himself. It describes him as a man of truth and a prophet. It says that Allah granted him sound judgment early on. It later describes him as upright, devoted, and chosen by Allah as a close friend. These descriptions matter because Ibrahim's confrontation with his people did not begin as an act of rebellion for its own sake. He was not rejecting their customs merely to appear different. He was not searching for attention. His questions came from sincerity, knowledge, and a refusal to give worship where worship did not belong. There are people who question everything because they do not wish to obey anything. Ibrahim questioned falsehood because he wished to obey the Creator. That distinction changes the entire story. Imagine living in a community where the objects of worship are everywhere. They are not hidden. They are not treated as strange. They are part of the society's normal rhythm. People gather around them. Families teach their children to honor them. Customs grow around them. Identity becomes connected to them. When a practice has existed for generations, people often stop asking why it exists. Familiarity begins to feel like evidence. Age begins to feel like authority. The number of people participating begins to feel like proof. But Ibrahim looked at the objects his people worshipped and asked a simple question. What are these statues to which you are so devoted? The question was not complicated. That was precisely why it was so difficult to answer. His people did not provide evidence that the statues created anything. They did not demonstrate that the statues heard prayers. They did not show that the statues controlled provision, life, death, the heavens, or the earth. They answered by pointing backward. They said that they had found their forefathers worshipping them. Their defense was inheritance. Their proof was repetition. Their certainty rested on the fact that people before them had behaved in the same way. Ibrahim did not insult the human need for family or belonging. The Quran presents him as deeply concerned for his father and his people. But love for one's family cannot transform falsehood into truth. Respect for previous generations does not require us to believe that every previous generation was correct. A practice may be ancient and still be wrong. A mistake may be inherited with sincerity and still remain a mistake. A whole society may agree on something that cannot hear, cannot see, cannot respond, and cannot benefit anyone. Ibrahim asked his people whether their idols heard them when they called. Could those idols benefit them, Could they harm them? Once again, the people did not answer with proof. They returned to their ancestors. They had seen others doing it, so they continued doing it. This part of Ibrahim's story reaches far beyond a room filled with stone statues. Human beings are deeply influenced by the people around them. We learn language from our families. We receive customs from our communities. We absorb assumptions before we are old enough to examine them. Much of that inheritance can be beautiful. Families transmit care, responsibility, memory, and faith. But the Quran teaches that inherited belief must still answer to revelation and truth. The believer does not reject parents simply because they are parents. The believer also does not follow parents into disobedience simply because they are parents. Islam does not ask us to choose between cruelty and blind obedience. It teaches respect without worship, kindness without surrendering truth, and loyalty without disobeying Allah. Ibrahim's questions were therefore not only directed toward stone, they were directed toward an entire method of thinking. Do we believe something because it is true, or do we call it true because it is familiar? The Quran then turns our attention upward. It tells us that Allah showed Ibrahim the dominion and wonders of the heavens and the earth so that he would be among those possessing certainty. Night came over him. He saw a star. The Quran records him saying in the course of the argument that this was his Lord. But when the star set, he declared that he did not love things that disappear. Then he saw the moon rising. It was larger and brighter, yet the moon also set. Then he saw the sun, greater in visible size and brilliance. The sun crossed the sky, and it too disappeared from sight. Ibrahim then declared his freedom from what his people associated with Allah. He turned himself toward the one who created the heavens and the earth, devoted purely to him. Scholars have discussed the precise nature of this scene. A widely held explanation is that Ibrahim was not personally worshipping each object and then changing his belief every few hours. Rather, he was demonstrating the weakness of his people's celestial worship through an argument they could follow. He moved with them from what appeared impressive toward the unavoidable conclusion. A star may shine, but it does not decide when it rises. The moon may illuminate the night, but it does not prevent itself from setting. The sun may dominate the daytime sky, but it does not escape the order placed upon it. The question is not merely which object is brightest. The question is who created light. The question is not which object appears largest. The question is who gave every object its measure, movement, and place. Created things may be beautiful signs. They are not the creator. Notice the precision of Ibrahim's reasoning. He did not deny that the star was impressive. He did not deny that the moon was beautiful. He did not deny that the sun was powerful within the created order. He denied that any of them deserved worship. This distinction is essential. Something can be useful without being divine. Something can be powerful compared with us while remaining completely dependent upon Allah. Something can inspire wonder without becoming an object of prayer. The mistake of worship is not always that people see no power at all. Sometimes they see a limited power and treat it as absolute. They see wealth purchase comfort and begin to trust wealth as though it controls every outcome. They see a leader command people and begin to speak as though the leader controls history. They see technology answer questions and begin to behave as though human knowledge has no boundary. They see popularity open doors and begin to believe that public approval determines human worth. These modern things are not automatically idols in the legal or theological sense. We should not use such comparisons carelessly, but the moral warning remains. A created thing must never occupy the place in the heart that belongs to the Creator. Everything we see rises and falls. Strength changes, beauty fades, markets move, governments end. Influence passes from one person to another. The one who created all of it does not disappear. The Quran brings the argument closer to home. Ibrahim spoke to his father. The words preserved in Surah Maryam are remarkable because they combine complete clarity with repeated tenderness. He addressed him as his dear father. He asked why he worshipped something that could not hear, could not see, and could not benefit him. He explained that knowledge had come to him which had not come to his father. He invited his father to follow him toward a straight path. He warned him not to follow Satan's rebellion against the most compassionate. He expressed fear that punishment might touch him. There is no delight in these words. Ibrahim was not celebrating the possibility that his father might be punished. He was trying to save him. His firmness grew from concern. His warning carried affection. His knowledge did not make him speak as though his father had no dignity. This is one of the Quran's clearest portraits of how truth may be spoken inside a difficult family relationship. Ibrahim knew that his father was wrong. He did not pretend that every belief was equally valid. He did not hide the danger, yet he continued to address him with tenderness. The response was not tender. His father rejected him. He asked whether Ibrahim had turned away from his gods. Then came the threat. If Ibrahim did not stop, his father would stone him. He ordered Ibrahim to leave him for a long time. This was not merely an intellectual disagreement. The person Ibrahim was trying to guide threatened him with violence and separation. Many people can remain calm while discussing truth with strangers. Family rejection is different. A stranger's words may hurt for a day. A parent's rejection can reach into a person's sense of belonging, history, and home. Yet Ibrahim did not answer threat with threat. He said peace would be upon his father. He said that he would ask his Lord to forgive him. He announced that he would withdraw from them and from what they invoked besides Allah. The Quran later clarifies that Ibrahim's request for forgiveness was connected to a promise he had made. When it became clear that his father remained an enemy to Allah, Ibrahim disassociated himself from that position. This clarification protects us from drawing the wrong conclusion. Compassion does not erase moral boundaries. Kindness does not require a believer to approve of disbelief, and separation, when it becomes necessary, does not require hatred or uncontrolled cruelty. Ibrahim left with peace on his tongue. There are families today in which one person begins taking faith seriously while others resist. There are homes where prayer is mocked. There are young people who wish to obey Allah but fear disappointing parents. There are converts who love their families deeply while no longer sharing the family's religious beliefs. There are parents trying to guide an adult child who no longer listens. Ibrahim's story does not reduce all these situations to a single formula. It does show a pattern. Speak with respect. Know what revelation actually teaches. Do not invent accusations. Do not humiliate people for entertainment. Do not treat family members as enemies merely because a conversation is difficult. But do not place family approval above obedience to Allah. The believer may be gentle and unmovable at the same time. Gentleness is not uncertainty, firmness is not cruelty. Ibrahim carried both. His challenge was not confined to a private conversation. He addressed his people publicly. He asked what they worshipped. They admitted that they worshipped idols and remained devoted to them. He asked whether those idols heard when they were called. He asked whether they brought benefit or caused harm. Their answer again returned to their ancestors. Ibrahim then described the Lord of all worlds, the one who created him and guided him, the one who provided food and drink, the one who healed him when he became ill, the one who would cause him to die and then bring him back to life, the one from whom he hoped for forgiveness on the day of judgment. This description replaces vague religious feeling with a clear understanding of dependence. Ibrahim did not merely say that his Lord was greater than the idols. He showed the difference between the Creator and creation. The idols had been shaped. Allah creates. The idols had to be carried. Allah guides. Food could be placed before an idol. Allah provides food. An idol could not remove dust from its own surface. Allah heals the sick. A statue could be broken by human hands. Allah gives life, causes death, and raises creation again. Once the difference is seen clearly, the comparison collapses. There is no competition between Allah and an idol. The idol possesses nothing independently. Yet people do not always abandon falsehood when its weakness becomes visible. Beliefs become connected to belonging. Customs become connected to social position. Religious systems can support economic interests. Public leaders may fear that admitting one error will weaken all their authority. A person may know privately that something is wrong while defending it publicly because too much of life has been built around it. This is why evidence alone does not always change a person. Evidence reaches the mind. Pride may block the path to the heart. Ibrahim's people were not simply missing information. They were protecting an identity. When he said that their Lord was the Lord of the heavens and earth, the one who created them, he was not introducing an insignificant alternative. He was removing the foundation beneath an entire order of worship. If Ibrahim was right, then the idols had no authority. Those who spoke in the idols' names had no sacred power. The customs inherited from the ancestors could not justify themselves, and every person would stand directly responsible before the Creator. Truth offered liberation from stone. It also demanded responsibility. The Quran preserves another confrontation involving Ibrahim. A man with political authority argued with him about his Lord because Allah had given that man kingship. The Quran does not name him. Later traditions often supply a name, but revelation itself does not, so we do not need one. The point of the passage is not the ruler's biography. The point is the ruler's illusion. Ibrahim said that his Lord gives life and causes death. The ruler claimed that he too gave life and caused death. The Quran presents this as an empty attempt to imitate divine power. A ruler may issue an order affecting whether a prisoner lives or dies. He may pardon one person and execute another. He may control access to food, security, or movement, but he does not create life. He does not manufacture the soul. He does not command the universe to return the dead. Political power can change a person's circumstances. It cannot transform a human being into the Lord of creation. Ibrahim did not become trapped inside the ruler's wordplay. He moved to an undeniable sign. Allah brings the sun from the east, bring it from the west. The ruler was left unable to answer. The argument is powerful because Ibrahim separates control over people from control over reality. A ruler may force people to repeat a claim. He cannot force the sun to confirm it. A government may print a title. It cannot print divinity. An institution may surround a false idea with ceremony, guards, wealth, and law. None of that changes what the idea is. The sun continues to rise by the command of Allah. The ruler's authority ends where the created order refuses to obey him. This remains relevant whenever power tries to define truth. Power can censor a statement. It cannot make a contradiction coherent. Power can punish a speaker. It cannot make an idol hear. Power can reward agreement. It cannot turn creation into the creator. This does not mean that every disagreement with authority makes a person an Ibrahim. A person may oppose leadership for selfish or foolish reasons. Ibrahim's position was not validated merely because he resisted. It was validated by revelation, sound reasoning, and sincere worship. The standard remains truth, not rebellion. If this journey is helping your family understand the story with greater clarity, take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the Guided Hour, and share it with someone who may benefit. Your support helps more families discover thoughtful and reliable Islamic storytelling. Now, let us return to the moment when Ibrahim's argument moved from spoken words to shattered stone. Ibrahim had told his people that he would act concerning their idols after they turned away. The Quran does not require us to invent the size of the building, the date of the gathering, or the appearance of every statue. It gives us the fact that matters. Ibrahim broke the idols into pieces except for the largest one so that the people might turn toward it for answers. They returned and saw what had happened. The objects around which they had organized worship lay broken. Their first question was not directed toward the idols. They asked one another who had done this to their gods. Notice the contradiction already present in their words. They called the statues gods, yet they knew someone else had overpowered them. They believed the idols deserved devotion, yet the idols could not identify the person who had struck them. Some among the people said they had heard a young man named Ibrahim speaking about the idols. They ordered that he be brought before the people so that they could witness what happened. Ibrahim was questioned. Had he done this to their gods? He directed them toward the largest idol and told them to ask the idols if they could speak. This was not a sincere claim that a stone statue had stood up and broken the others. It was an argument made visible. If the largest idol possessed the power they claimed, let it answer. If the smaller idols possessed awareness, let them testify. If any of them deserved prayer, surely one of them could respond at the very moment their worshippers needed an explanation. For a moment, the argument reached them. The Quran says that they turned toward themselves. They admitted that they were the wrongdoers. This may be one of the most important moments in the scene. The truth was not hidden. They saw it. The idols could not speak. The idols could not defend themselves. The idols could not answer a direct question. Their worshippers knew this, but recognition is not the same as repentance. A person may see the truth and then turn away from it. A person may admit privately that a habit is destructive and continue defending it publicly. A leader may understand that a policy has failed and attack the critic rather than correct the policy. A family may recognize that an inherited practice has harmed people and still silence anyone who names the harm. The people's first inward recognition did not last. The Quran describes them as reversing themselves. They returned to the defense of the idols. They told Ibrahim that he already knew the statues did not speak. That statement should have ended the entire system of worship. Instead, they used it as though it were a defense. Ibrahim asked whether they worshipped besides Allah things that could neither benefit nor harm them. He expressed rejection of what they worshipped. Would they not reason? The scene reveals how deeply human beings can protect contradiction. The people knew the idols did not speak, yet they became angry when Ibrahim treated them as speechless objects. They knew the idols could be broken. Yet they wanted society to behave as though the idols possessed power. They knew a human being had to defend the statues, yet they called the statues divine protectors. Falsehood often survives through an agreement not to examine it too closely. Everyone learns which questions must not be asked. Everyone learns which facts must be ignored. Everyone learns which contradictions must be protected with emotion. Then one person asks the forbidden question. Can it hear you? Can it answer? Can it defend itself? The system reacts, not because the question is complicated, but because the answer is obvious. Ibrahim's action also requires careful understanding. The story is not permission for individuals to enter places and destroy whatever they personally consider wrong. Ibrahim was a prophet acting within a revealed mission and confronting the central public objects of his people's worship. Islam does not permit private anger, vigilantism, or uncontrolled destruction to borrow the authority of a prophet. The guidance for us lies in his rejection of false worship, his exposure of contradiction, his courage, and his loyalty to Allah. We follow prophets through the law and guidance brought by Allah, not by imitating isolated actions without knowledge or authority. This distinction protects sacred history from becoming an excuse for modern chaos. Ibrahim's courage was disciplined. It was not random rage. His action forced his people to face the very question they had avoided. What kind of God must be rescued by its worshippers? They had no answer, so the discussion changed. They no longer tried to prove that the idols heard. They no longer tried to show that the idols benefited anyone. They no longer appealed only to their ancestors. They called for fire. Burn him, they said, and support your gods if you are going to act. The sentence exposes the final contradiction. The people had to support their gods. The gods could not support themselves. The people had to gather, decide, prepare, and punish. The idols remained silent through all of it. False worship had reached a point where human beings were willing to kill a man in order to protect objects that could not feel the heat prepared in their name. The Quran does not dwell on graphic detail. It does not invite us to enjoy Ibrahim's danger. It takes us directly to the reality of divine command. The people intended harm. The fire was real, but the fire was created. Fire possesses qualities Allah created within it. It gives warmth. It consumes material. It can illuminate. It can destroy. Human beings learn to use those qualities, but we do not create the laws upon which they depend. The people saw fire as the final argument because they believed they controlled the cause. They could gather fuel. They could ignite it. They could place Ibrahim within danger. From their perspective, the result seemed inevitable, but causes are not independent gods. Fire does not possess a will separate from its creator. The Quran records the command of Allah to the fire, become coolness and safety for Ibrahim, not merely coolness, safety. Scholars have noted the completeness of the wording. excessive cold can also harm. The command joined coolness with protection. The people had prepared what they believed would erase Ibrahim. Allah transformed the place of danger into a sign remembered across generations. The Quran does not tell us that Ibrahim became divine. It does not tell us to worship him because he survived. It teaches the opposite. Ibrahim was saved because Allah is the Lord of Ibrahim and the Lord of the fire. The miracle does not transfer worship from the idol to the prophet. It directs worship to the one who controls both servant and flame. This is a defining Islamic principle. Prophets receive miracles. They do not become gods. They call toward Allah. They do not call people to worship themselves. Ibrahim's survival did not prove that he controlled nature. It proved that nature remained under the command of Allah. We should also be careful with the way we connect this miracle to our own lives. Trust in Allah does not mean that every believer will be placed inside a fire and emerge physically unharmed. The Quran records extraordinary miracles for prophets. We do not demand identical miracles as the condition for faith. A believer may suffer. A truthful person may lose a job. A family may endure illness. A community may experience persecution. A person may make dua and still pass through grief. The guidance is not that fire will always become physically cool for us. The guidance is that fire never escapes Allah. The danger knows a boundary even when we do not see it. The oppressor acts within a life he did not create. The result belongs to Allah. Sometimes rescue means removal of the danger. Sometimes it means strength within the trial. Sometimes it means reward beyond this world. Reliance is not a contract in which we dictate the form of rescue. It is worship grounded in the knowledge that Allah remains wise, powerful, and fully aware. Ibrahim did not worship Allah because he had already seen the fire become cool. He stood for Allah before the rescue appeared. That is the heart of trust. The people planned to harm him. The Quran says that Allah made them the greatest losers. They possessed the crowd. They possessed the means of punishment. They possessed the public stage. Yet Ibrahim possessed what they could not manufacture: guidance. The miracle exposed the weakness of their idols, but it also exposed the weakness of their social power. They could arrange a fire. They could not guarantee its effect. They could make a law. They could not command creation. They could surround one man. They could not surround Allah. The event reverses the meaning of strength. Before the fire, Ibrahim appeared socially weak. After the fire, the people's helplessness became visible. They had defended powerless gods with powerless certainty. There is another form of fire in the story. The visible fire threatened Ibrahim's body. The fire of pride had already consumed his people's ability to repent. They had reached the correct conclusion when they admitted they were wrongdoers. Then pride pulled them backward. This may be the more common danger in our own lives. Most people will never stand before a literal fire because they challenged public idols. But every person faces moments when admitting the truth feels costly. You discover that you judged someone unfairly. You learn that a belief you repeated was unsupported. Your child asks a question you cannot answer. An employee identifies a flaw in a decision you defended. A spouse names a harmful pattern. A teacher or scholar corrects something you misunderstood. At that moment, an inner choice appears. Will you turn toward yourself honestly, or will you reverse, protect your image, and attack the person who exposed the mistake? Ibrahim's people show that intelligence is not enough. They understood the argument. Humility was missing. Guidance requires a heart willing to surrender when truth becomes clear. After the confrontation and rescue, the Quran tells us that Lut believed in Ibrahim. One sincere response may seem small beside an entire rejecting society, but faith is not counted only by crowds. Ibrahim had stood before many. The Quran specifically preserves the belief of one. Lut's response reminds us that sincere words may reach someone even when public reaction appears hostile. A teacher may speak to a room and see no visible change, while one listener carries the truth for years. A parent may repeat guidance that seems ignored, while one sentence remains in a child's heart. A person may defend what is right at work, lose the immediate argument, and still give courage to someone watching silently. We are responsible for honesty and wisdom. We are not given control over how many people respond. Ibrahim's people prepared a fire. Lut believed. The same public event revealed rebellion in many hearts and faith in another. Then came migration. Ibrahim said that he was migrating toward his Lord. This does not mean that Allah was confined to one geographical direction. It means that Ibrahim was leaving in obedience to him, seeking a place where he could continue the mission entrusted to him. The Quran also says that Allah saved Ibrahim and Lut toward a land blessed for the worlds. Migration is sometimes described only through maps. A person leaves one region and enters another, but the spiritual movement begins earlier. Ibrahim had already migrated inwardly from inherited falsehood to conscious faith. He had separated worship from family pressure. He had separated truth from public approval. He had separated divine power from political power. He had separated created signs from the Creator. Only then did the physical road open before him. Leaving is not always defeat. There are times when remaining is an act of courage. There are also times when leaving becomes obedience. A person may leave an environment that continually pulls them towards sin. A family may move to protect faith, safety, or children. An employee may leave a workplace that requires dishonesty. A student may withdraw from a group built around humiliation or corruption. A community may establish a new institution after every attempt at reform has been blocked. These decisions require knowledge. Running from every difficulty is not faith. Remaining inside every harmful situation is not automatically patience. Ibrahim's migration was guided by Allah and belonged to his prophetic mission. Our decisions require prayer, consultation, lawful judgment, and honest examination of consequences. Yet his road teaches that familiarity is not the highest good. Sometimes obedience leads away from the place that once felt like home. Think of what Ibrahim was leaving behind: a father who had threatened him, a people who had rejected him, objects of worship he had exposed, a public order willing to burn him rather than reconsider, smoke from a failed execution. The Quran does not ask us to imagine invented private thoughts. It gives us his declared direction. Toward my Lord, those words are enough. He did not need to know every future chapter before taking the next obedient step. He did not yet stand beside the Kaaba with Ismail raising its foundations. He had not yet received every promise associated with his descendants. The nations that would later honor his name were not visible on the road. At that moment, there was obedience. There was movement. There was trust. The future legacy of Ibrahim would become immense, but the road began with leaving what was false for the sake of what was true. The story began with a fire prepared by a society, but the deeper story began before the flames. It began when Ibrahim looked at what everyone else accepted and asked whether it could hear. It began when he looked at the sky and refused to worship what disappeared. It began when he spoke tenderly to a father who rejected him. It began when he stood before political power and distinguished authority over people from authority over creation. It began when he placed truth above belonging. The fire did not create Ibrahim's faith. The fire revealed it. This is why the Quran preserves the story. Not so that we can admire courage from a safe distance. Not so that we can imagine ourselves automatically standing with Ibrahim while refusing every smaller opportunity to tell the truth. The story asks where our loyalty rests when truth becomes inconvenient. Do we examine what we inherit? Do we remain respectful when family conversations become painful? Do we admit error when evidence becomes clear? Do we confuse public power with moral authority? Do we trust created causes as though they operate independently from Allah? Do we defend our image after our argument has failed? These questions bring Ibrahim's journey into our homes, workplaces, schools, communities, and private decisions. A child may stand with Ibrahim by refusing to join classmates who mock someone weaker. A manager may stand with the principle shown in his story by admitting that a popular decision was wrong. A parent may reflect his gentleness by answering a difficult religious question without humiliation or anger. A student may follow his intellectual honesty by checking evidence rather than repeating a claim because everyone in a group repeats it. A believer may honor his legacy by placing prayer, truthfulness, and obedience above the changing approval of people. None of these actions make someone equal to a prophet. They are ways of allowing prophetic guidance to correct ordinary life. The people believed that the fire would end the argument. Instead, the fire became part of the evidence. They believed that breaking the idols would prove Ibrahim was powerless. Instead, the broken idols proved the idols were powerless. They believed that isolation would erase him. Instead, his migration opened the next chapter of a legacy remembered by billions. Falsehood often imagines that silencing a truthful person will silence truth, but truth does not depend on one crowd's permission. The Creator who brought the sun from the east remained the Creator when the ruler could not answer. The Lord who governed the heavens remained the Lord when the star, moon, and sun disappeared from sight. The one who created fire remained its Lord when people tried to use it against his prophet. And the Lord of every road remained with Ibrahim when he walked away from the smoke. The final image of this first part is therefore not a statue, a ruler, or even a flame. It is an open road. Behind Ibrahim was a society that had chosen inherited falsehood after recognizing its weakness. Ahead of him was a future he could not yet see in full. He walked not because every question about the journey had been answered, but because the direction had become clear toward his Lord. The smoke remained behind. The guidance traveled with him. You have been listening to The Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Until our next journey, may Allah increase us in beneficial knowledge and guide us toward what is true.